Come here. Come here. I'm going to tell you about the time I used someone else's poop to sort out my gut. That's right. That happened. That happened for quite a while as well, I'll be honest. So, firstly, before we go any further, this is not medical advice. I do not recommend people go and do their own DIY fecal microbial transplants. I just do not recommend it. This is just how I work as an individual. I am an experimenter. I experiment on myself. I've got a little bit of background in these areas, and I just go for it and try these things. And at that time in my life, before I understood about somatics and the emotional work and German new medicine, I was in quite a place of desperation, and I wanted to try things in order to help me. So firstly, what are fecal microbial transplants? They are basically poop, someone else's poop, that you put into your body in order to repopulate your gut. So there's been lots of extensive research into fecal microbial transplants, huge amounts. Actually, this is where we found out so much about the microbiome, is actually through fecal microbial transplants. Now, there's multiple ways transplants can be done. You can do them through pill form, or you can do them through enema, or you can do them through like an operation procedure where they implement it through into certain parts of your gut. I'm not too sure of that one, but I know that they put you to sleep. It's like a colonoscopy, and they can insert it that way. So you normally go to a donor, and you find a donor that matches you. So you have your own stool test done. They have their stool test done. They are tested very extensively in any mental health conditions, all that sort of jargon, and to see if that will match. Even with all the most extensive research, is someone really going to be a good match for your individuality of your microbiome? I guess it's better than nothing, right? It's better than nothing. But what we have seen through fecal microbial transplants, right, is it's been a cure. It's been a helping aid for people with metabolic diseases, and it's been a help with people with mental health issues, anxiety, depression. It's been a help for people with things like chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, all of these other issues that can sometimes not be explained. From my understanding and my knowledge now, I understand a little bit more about what could be the emotional component to that they're needing something outside of ourselves in order to feel better. But for me at that time anyway, I was not in a good place. I had years and years of taking medications and antibiotics. I took antibiotics every time I was sick, had a sniffle for years, because that's what I was taught by my parents. In London, in the early 90s, late 90s, I was taught if I ever had an issue, go to the doctors, and I just trusted the doctor and whatever the doctor said. So I did it. So every time I felt anything that was any form of discomfort, I would just go to the doctors and they would just chuck me an antibiotic, and I'd just take them. Had no idea about them. And then through my bodybuilding years and my drug taking years, I was taking all sorts of different things that were disturbing my microbiome. I was taking things like DNP. Is it DNP or DNT? Oh my God, I can't even remember now. It's so long ago. I believe it's DNP. DNP is a form of rat poison that speeds up the metabolism. Are you hearing me? I took some form of rat poison. You imagine what that does to your gut. Destroys your gut. In order for what? So you can lose body fat at a really quicker rate. People die of that stuff. They take too much and they overheat and they die. Their organs burn from the inside out. Like they go to a hospital and the hospital will put them in ice, and there's nothing that they can do about them. They've just got to hope that they can cool down, that they've not taken enough. That is actually a thing. Crazy. And then huge amounts of antibiotics constantly, all the time, medications and drugs, all sorts of drugs that can just wither away your gut microbiome and your gut lining, and that causes neuroinflammation, and your neurotransmitters, your mental health gets shot, everything like that, right? So I was in a place of like, I was in a really not good way mentally, and I was like starting to think of ways I can start to improve my health after I came out of the addiction and the withdrawal started to subside. I was like, okay, what am I going to do? What am I going to try here? So I'd done a stool test, and my stool test, I was working with a functional practitioner, and I'd done a stool test, and she said to me it was one of the worst, and now I've still got that stool test, and it was really bad. One of the worst stool tests she'd seen in many years. I had literally 0 to no microbiome, like beneficial bacteria at all, which is wild to say, but not like I didn't expect something along those lines, if I'm honest. So I'd done all the different like protocols and trying to take probiotics and symbiotics and and all these different things. This is, we're talking 12 years ago now. And I got some improvement, but then it got to a point where I was just still in a bad way. And I was like, right, if I can speed this up, I'll speed it up. And I started looking into FMTs and fecal microbial transplants. So that's the road I took. And what I did was, this is a bit sneaky, I don't recommend anyone does this, but I went to a donor place where they do donors, and you can go to these treatment centers and they match you up with someone and you can then have your fecal microbial transplant done. So I just decided, right, I'm just going to go along, see what it's like. And I got to understand, I said, like, what is your protocol? How does it work? What is done? And I basically got a written out protocol of what they do step by step. And it was 10 grand a pop, like for a pill, every time that you wanted to have a colonoscopy done and do it that way. And I was just like, I'm just going to do this myself. I'm just going to go for it. So I had the protocol written out already. I'd done loads of extensive research of loads of other people that have done this, loads on YouTube, all this sort of type of stuff. And I decided to do it going down the enema route. Now, my ex-partner never really taken any antibiotics in her life. She was super healthy, gym goer, looked after herself really well, ate good food. And I thought, right, well, let's just do it with her. We live in the same environment. We have done for a few years, and let's just see how we go with that. So I got her stool tested. We checked if there was she had any parasites, any of this stuff going on. At the end of the day, at that time, I didn't have as big extensive knowledge as I do now in that area, and I just gave it a go. And we done the stool test. She was all good. Done a blood test. She was all good. We had my stool test already, and then we went and done it. And the way that I did it at this time was using saline solution, the poop. So in the morning, she would go and have a poop in like a little tray that we'd collect. This is so gnarly. A little poop in a tray, and then we pull it in our own. We buy a glass blender for it, and then we plop the poop in and put saline solution in. I can't remember if I put anything else to it or it was just that. I believe it was just saline solution, and then blended it up. Never use that blender in this house. I don't have the blender anymore. I don't have it. So we blend it up. And then I do an enema bulb, basically. Enema bulb, like the little bulbs that you put in. And you basically would fill that up with the poop. And then I'd go onto my left side. It was always important to go on the left side first, the way that the colon moves. You want to move it to the right and round and sort of up like that. So I'd go to the left-hand side. I'd put it in. I'd fill the whole, much of the enema up, and I'd put it into my bum. And then I would lay on my side for a few minutes on my left. And then I would go onto my back with my legs up the wall and put a bum under my pillow, and then I would go onto my right, and then I would try and retain the fecal. Wow, such a gnarly thing to talk about. I would retain it for as long as possible. Now, within those days that I started to do that, even in the first day, I started to have a little bit more energy. At this time, I was really struggling with no energy. My mood was really low. I couldn't absorb food. I was getting very nutriently deficient, and I was trying all these different protocols, which obviously meant lots of restriction of different foods because I was reactive to everything, because my body and my microbiome didn't have the diversity in order to break down fats, break down certain fibers and vegetables, and even get my stomach acid secretion working to break down proteins, right? So I was in a struggling place. I had big bags under my eyes, nutrient deficient, mineral deficient, adrenals, cortisol. I had nothing really in my body at that time that was helping me. And, I was taking toxins for many years. So I needed a big boost to do that. And taking a fecal microbial transplant is like having a caseload of probiotics in one. Now, the reason I didn't go down the pill route and I went through the enema route was because when you go through the pill route, it's got to make it all the way through your digestive tract. You've got to get through your stomach acid and all the way down into the area it needs to in your colon. And when you do it through an enema, you're going sort of straight into that area. That was my theory at the time, and I believe that's what some people do. So my energy started to increase. I started to feel better. Things just changed a little bit, like by 1%. The needle moved by 1%, and I just started to feel a little bit more like myself. I wasn't 100%. I'm not saying it like healed me and then this is the thing that changed my life. It wasn't. It was a mixture of huge amounts of modalities I couldn't even put into one video. But it was definitely a big help in helping my physical body after years of, poisoning myself and all of the toxins I used in my body, right? And I'd done that consistently. I'd done them every day for 5 days, and then I'd have a weekend off, and then I'd do it again every other day. And I'd done that like that for a few weeks. And we retested my stool, and my microbiome diversity was back up within range. My gut lining started to heal. I started to obviously be able to absorb more food. My bags under my eyes were going. I was sleeping better. I was feeling less anxious, and my digestion was starting to like do well. I wasn't having chronic diarrhea or constipation all the time. I was starting to like have proper bowel movements. So it was definitely a step in the right direction, but I don't think it was necessarily the be all and end all, but it did help in some regards. Now I've seen people work with this and work with chronic fatigue, and their fatigue improves by about 60%, and they go on to, it gives them a little bit more energy because maybe their gut was a bit compromised, and it gave them a bit more energy to look into other avenues and modalities. Do I recommend this for people? Look, I think there's other things that you can do before you go down that route, but if you have had a very compromised gut for a long period of time, it's worth looking into. Maybe looking into actual donors around near you, maybe look into treatment centers around you. I wouldn't definitely recommend, maybe don't take my advice on the DIY part, and see what comes up for you, see what you see, because it could be quite game changing for some people. So this has been a cure for C. difficile. If you don't know what C. difficile is, C. diff is something that is very hard to get rid of. The only way they treat C. diff is from with antibiotics, but you haven't got the bacteria, the microbiome diversity to keep the C. difficile at bay. So then you take antibiotics, you kill the C. diff, but your microbiome diversity goes down and it can't control the C. diff again. So it ends up in this like big loop cycle of constantly doing the same thing. It makes no sense to just, in my mind, it makes no sense to do C. difficile antibiotics to treat it when they now have shown that FMTs are hugely successful for C. difficile. So you've had huge success with people with Crohn's disease as well. Not all, but huge success there. I do believe there's a bigger emotional component to a lot of these things going on, but I thought it would be a cool story for you guys to hear and listen to. And let me know what you think. Yeah, poops away.